de la famille.
So hi everyone. So I'm Canelle, the CMO and the co-founder of Vybe. So Vybe is a new bank for Generation Z, and I'm going to talk about obviously how to disrupt banking with zero experience. So first, I think I'm going to talk about a bit about Vybe history, then how we created a new bank for Gen Z, and maybe a bit about the future of banking for Gen Z. So to begin with Vybe history, the big problematic that we were facing on the market and when we launched Vybe was that there were no actors addressing properly the Gen Z. Most actors were addressing the parents, they were addressing maybe sometimes grandparents, but they were a lot infantilizing new generation. But we're talking to a generation that is very independent, that has been raised with constant information through the internet and is used to make choices, used to talk about their opinions, and we wouldn't recognize us in any kind of services already on the market. So we wanted to create something that would be also very simple to understand, because when you talk about banking to teenagers or even after 18 years old people, they imagine something that is very institutional, that is very complicated to understand, that is going to cost a lot, and that is not transparent at all, because we had a lot of crises in the past centuries that made people think that banking is very not trustworthy. So we wanted to make there something very clear, very understandable, and simple to use. So we launched in our landing page in August 2019. So basically, we were proposing a card that is free from 13 years old, an app on which you can handle all your expenses, and an app for the parents, and perks on many brands such as Starbucks, Deliveroo, Burger King, and any other brands that you can use when you're young with cashback on it when you use the Vybe. So we launched basically through social networks. So we contacted a lot of influencers through Instagram because they were very concerned, because you have a lot of people from Gen Z that are monetizing what they do, especially through social networks. It can be on YouTube, it can be on Instagram, on TikTok, on every kind of social networks, and they are very, very sensitive about that because they don't have any services at their name. They're used to have something very dependent from their parents or their brother, or they don't have any services that talk for themselves, and they're not very independent financially. So we launched with an influencer that had Vybe at heart. So we didn't have to pay at all, because they were very, very interested in Vybe and very concerned by what we were proposing for our generation. And it became viral very quickly, because in 10 days we had gained more than 100,000 web signups. So we went viral very quickly, so especially for Instagram and Snapchat. And so basically it was just a landing page, and then we had to go from landing page and a concept that would just sensibilize and concern our whole generation to a real new bank with a banking system and a real license. So the first thing we had to do was to get a license, because we weren't legally a new bank yet, and now we're not a new bank anymore. But so first we went to get a license in the UK, and we had our license as an e-money institution in September. So our license would allow us to open accounts, to send cards with our brand, and have direct contact with support with our customers. So we went from that to the beginning of the creation of an app with the whole banking part. When you have to create a BIN, we have to create the product and all the technical things that would take a lot of time. And we launched our first app in November 2019. So so the first step would allow you just to refer your friends. So because when you register at Vybe, you have a referral code that allow you to refer your friends, and once your friend and you open the account, you both get €2. And you had a ranking that would allow people that would share the most to be ranked as first and to get the cards so at first when the cards would be live. And I think that helped a lot about virality, because everyone was talking about Vybe on social networks. Everyone wanted to have their card and to refer some other people to get money. And so when we launched our first app, it made a very big boom on the App Store, because we went on first of the App Store for a week, in front of WhatsApp, in front of Facebook, in front of every other big app, which was very, very impressive for us. And in the meantime, so that was the first app we launched. And then we had to wait until the whole product and the whole cause development would be ready, which was about 6 months later. And then, so the big problem was to make our community wait, because we're part of a generation that doesn't want to wait. We're very used to have everything very fast, and if it's not there, then we go get it ourselves. So I think what helped us a lot to create a very big engagement from our community and to make everyone wait for the cards was transparency. For instance, we were at first supposed to launch the cards in March 2020, but in March 2020, COVID happened and Brexit happened at the same time. And we had to make a choice between just tell everyone that it's not, that the cards won't be live yet, and that we have to delay our big launch to September, which is a very hard decision, because we all were also hesitating with just saying that it's a bit delayed and then just delay and delay every time. And we chose transparency, so full transparency, by saying to them that it's not going to happen now. They have to wait a bit. And what was very impressive is that we were expecting to lose followers, to lose engagement on social networks, but it grew even faster, because they loved that the fact we were transparent, the fact that they would be into the creation of Vybe. So just to know is that when we launched Vybe at first on social networks, we said from day one that we were co-creating Vybe with our generation. So that means that we would include them with every step of the process of creating a new bank for Gen Z. It would be to add new features on the app. It would be to choose the card design, the packaging design. Every step or every choice we had to make, we would share it on social networks so that they could make it with us. And every advances we had, we would share it with them. When we had our first license, when we moved in our first headquarters, and I think that's the engagement they're looking for, because I think we're talking to a generation that is very engaged. More than banking, it needs to have a goal. So for instance, it's a very engaged generation too. It can be for ecological cause, it can be with LGBT communities, and for us is with the creation of a new bank for our generation. And so we created a very complicity way to talk to them. That means that every day we exchange with them through social networks, and mostly with Instagram. And that's something that makes the engagement of our users very, very big, because we exchange more than 1,000 messages per day, and we talk to them directly as if they were with our friends. We sensibilize them with banking sector. For instance, when you're 15, you don't know what is a beneficiary, or how you use your IBAN, or you have many questions, and we answer to them directly. We talk to them with a very simple way, and you don't have to call with your agents to take an appointment just to have answers to a few questions. So the main thing that made everyone stay was transparency, the fact that they would share their opinion and that they would build a Vybe with us. So that was on the big part that we had to go through. And then I think that what is very important for the brand is that you associate your brand with good people, with good icons. So, like for instance, we have made lots of partnerships with influencers, but influencers that were very good, well considered by our generation, which means that you can do ads, you can do anything, but just to create something that is very sincere and that is very trendy, because you follow the trends and you follow the people that are on trends and that have a very good image. We made a collaboration with the biggest duo of YouTubers in France, with Mathias and Carlito, and we made about 8 million views. So we sensibilized about 8 million French people to what Vybe is, which had a very good effect, because everyone is considering the YouTubers and the people we made partnership with very well. They have a good image, and not even about the return on investment you're doing when you're doing partnership. It's more about what with who you associate your brand, and what is the repercussion of this association of brands. So that's how we grew Vybe. So today we count on our app more than 3,000 downloads and more than 200,000 people that have pre-ordered the card. And we launched our first card in September 2020, and we count today thousands of account opened, and we have very, very good use of our card. And I think that the engagement that people have through social networks and through the brands is reflecting on how they use it. So for instance, we have most of our users, a big majority of our users use daily or 1 on 2 days the card. And I think that is a reflection of the fact that they choose the card. It was not imposed by the parents. So because you see that more than 60% of people between 18 and 22 years old, they change of bank because they didn't have the choice to choose their bank when they were younger. It was usually imposed by the parents. And when it's imposed by the parents, you get a traditional bank that is very slow, that is adapted to what your parents know. But you're a new generation, you need other things on your bank, and you need a very faster way and more flexible way to manage your money. And I think that the fact that they choose Vybe and that it was not imposed by the parents reflects also on how much they use the card and how much they're engaged with the brand. So that's it. And I think that so we have another part. So we have 2 parts, the 2 communities. So the first one is the Gen Z mostly, who we know have to talk. We are also addressing directly, and the other part is the parents. So for the parents, we do a lot of communication. We are a point of communication between their teenagers and them. So basically, all the parents don't have any knowledge about how Gen Z is thinking, and we're launching a blog on which we explain to them how what are the more, what are the expectations of a young teenager part of the Gen Z, what are the thing he's going to think about, how he can earn money, how he can be more independent. And we include the parents for the app with through actions, like when you want to add a beneficiary and when you want to do something, you can send directly a message to your parents so that we can create a gap I mean, not a gap, but a point of communication between these two generations that have very different ways of thinking, so that they can exchange and be helped by Vybe to understand each other.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Canelle. It seems like we're pretty much on time, and I'm gonna be tasked with trying to keep it essentially on schedule. We already have quite a lot of questions on your banking license and kind of like technical questions about you setting up the bank, and we'll talk about that in 1 minute. I think Prek, who's kindly organizing the event, asked me to make a few comments that would kind of go beyond the just pure banking experience when it comes to first-time founders. And I think what's funny in the case of Vybe and what you and Vincent did is just that when you started, I don't think you were aware of all the challenges that came with launching a bank. I mean, even you're calling it a bank when it wasn't really clear that you were allowed to call it a bank. You started off trying to find a payment partner, and it wasn't that easy to find the right one. You tried a few. And I think it's one of the common things with a lot of people who start their first company in a very regulated industry is they start off kind of underestimating how painful a lot of those things are. And the funny thing is that if you'd known how painful they were, you might not have started them at all. And that's why a lot of the time when you look at like true breakthroughs in these very regulated industries, they tend to be done by young founders, just because people who've already worked in banking know all the regulatory and kind of compliance that comes with running a business like the one you guys are running, and so they just kind of get bored out of it or lazy. Whereas you guys started speaking to your customers and you kind of put yourself on the spot and committed to all those people saying, we're going to provide you with a better banking solution. And then you're like, okay, now we need to build it. And you kind of went on and faced the problems. And I think you can see it. Sometimes it's regulatory, sometimes it's a technical challenge. Some people just have to deal with a process that's super tedious and time consuming, and it looks so boring to solve that nobody really questions it. And very often the people who do end up solving it are people who come with very fresh eyes. And I think that's probably one of the biggest advantages that you have as a first-time founder coming into a regulated industry, is that you can kind of bend the rules and rethink why some of those things exist. And whether it's the capital they need to lock up or the way you market yourself, like there are always solutions to the problems that you might face. So let's start. Let's take a couple questions because we only have like 5 minutes. So Guillaume asks, how long after you started did you realize that the idea was spot on, or were you 100% convinced from the beginning?
So I was convinced because it was meant for my generation. I was very frustrated from my bank because when I wanted, when, for instance, I wanted to send money to anyone, I had to add a beneficiary, which takes 2 days. And then 2 days later, I have to remember that I have a transfer of money to make, which is a very long process because usually I forget. And I was very frustrated because I was coming back from holidays and I had so many fees coming on my accounts, which I didn't know about. And that was not transparent at all because it doesn't say about the fees, where they come from, why do you have it, and I was never introduced about what fees I could have. So the lack of transparency was a lot getting on my nerve with traditional banks. And I think that it was a problem that was recurrent with my generation after talking to a lot of friends and seeing how they would talk about traditional bank. So I was convinced from the beginning, and the fact that we went viral that quickly, I think, made the point about the good angle that we have, confirmed that what we wanted to improve and what we wanted to create was good and was done with the proper way.
Yeah, the landing page success at the beginning was crazy. Mark asks, Is it expensive to get a banking license? Do you need significant capital locked up?
So you need a minimum of capital. It is expensive, but not as expensive as when you want to be an established an established institution. So today we are in an institution. So that means that we are kind of renting our license to our banking partner. So you have a few banking license. You have the credit one, which is for the traditional banks that are allowing to make credits, offer a few kinds of services. Then you have just you're a banking agent, and then you can just provide open accounts to keep the funds of your customers in your institution and do whatever you want to them with it. And then it's us, so we are an imminent institution, which means that we can open accounts and we can provide cards with our brand on it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Canelle. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. I'm sad because I see that Robert just asked a question. But what we can do is that if you have any questions and if you're okay with it, Canelle, maybe they can, maybe you can answer the questions in the chat or just answer the questions by email if people can email you.
From what I see, the main thing is that we were good on the community we were targeting, and we knew how to address it. For the banking experience, we knew how to round us, so we made our fundraising with good investors that had already a lot of experience in that banking sector. For instance, we had the former director of a very big traditional bank, who is Ronan Lemoyle. We have a former board member of MasterCard, and many of people that are already from the banking sector and that can advise us very well on the choice we make.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Canelle. Thanks everyone for joining. If you have any questions, you can stick around and ask them in the chat or by email. And thanks again for joining the session. I hope that you are having a great event and that you'll enjoy the next sessions as much as I did Canelle's.
Thank you.
Take care.